There's a window leaning against the back of my shed. Wood sash, single pane, came out of a house down the road when they went to vinyl. The man who pulled it paid to have the rest of them hauled off. Landfill charged him by the load. He paid money to get rid of it. The thing I turned mine into sells in a catalog for $399. Same object. One of us paid to throw it away, and one of us is eating spinach in December. My name is Hollis Ward. I've worked the same 40 acres of bottom ground for 38 years, and I have never once bought a season extension product. Not because I'm stubborn, because every one of them I've picked up in a store was a box with a clear lid, and I already had the clear lid, and so do you. And so does everybody you know who's put new windows in since about 1995. What I'm going to give you today is a piece of equipment that buys you 4 to 8 weeks on each end of your growing year. Spring and fall. That's 2 months of garden you are currently not getting. Stay with me. You'll get what to ask for and who to ask. The 4 boards, the one direction it has to face, and the one daily habit that decides whether this works or kills everything inside it in an afternoon. Your growing season is not as long as your climate. It's as long as your last frost and your first frost, let it be. And those 2 dates are doing the deciding for you. Here's what that looks like in practice. In spring, you're standing at the window in April watching a hard freeze warning, with flats of seedlings on every surface in the house, under the shop light, on the washing machine, in front of the sliding door, and you're carrying them out in the morning and back in at night for 2 weeks like a man moving furniture. In fall, you pull green tomatoes off the vine because of one night. One night. Everything after that night was going to be free food, and you gave it up because the calendar said so. And in between, in February, you're in a grocery store paying $4 or $5 for a plastic clamshell of lettuce that was cut in Yuma 8 days ago and has already gone slick at the edges. Spinach, kale, mache, arugula, chard, leeks, carrots, radishes. Every one of those will keep producing in cold that would kill a tomato. They are not fragile. They are just unprotected. The tool that fixes this has a name. It's a cold frame, a bottomless box with a clear lid, sitting directly on the ground, with no heat source but the sun. That's it. That's the entire machine. No power, no fan, no thermostat, nothing to break. You can buy one. A commercial polycarbonate kit, the Jules, the Julianas, the ones in the seed catalogs, runs about $150 to $400 depending on size. Now, I've read the reviews on those the way you'd read them. And here's the thing that comes up over and over. The polycarbonate panels degrade in sunlight. They go cloudy, then brittle. Buyers report replacing units after 2 or 3 seasons of hard sun. So look at what's actually being sold. 4 walls, which is lumber, hinges, which are hardware, and a clear lid, which is the expensive part, and the part that fails. The glass in that window against my shed was made before I had a driver's license. It has been rained on for 50 years. It has not gone cloudy, it has not gone brittle, and it will not, because glass doesn't do that. The most durable component of a $300 tool is the one your neighbor is currently paying a landfill to accept. That's not a bargain, that's an inversion. The good part is free, and the part that wears out is what you'd be buying. Old windows have no resale market. Nobody wants them. They're heavy, they're awkward, they're a liability in a truck bed, and a contractor on a window job has to pay tipping fees by weight to make them go away. Which means you are not asking anybody for a favor. You are offering to reduce his disposal bill. Where they are. Any house getting replacement windows, watch for the crew and the pile. Habitat for Humanity restores, which price them at a few dollars if they price them at all. Marketplace, and the free section of the classifieds, where they sit for weeks. Barn cleanouts, estate sales on the last day, and the pile behind almost every rural garage in America, including possibly your own. What you want. A wood sash window, the bigger the better, glass intact, frame not rotted soft. Take a pocket knife and press the point into the bottom rail. That's where they rot first. If it goes in like cheese, leave it. Aluminum frame storm windows work too, and they're lighter. A sliding glass door panel is the best of the lot, if you can lift it, and those get thrown away constantly. Here's the mechanism, and there are 2 halves to it. Most people only know the first one. The first half is passive solar gain. Sunlight comes through the glass as shortwave energy. It hits the soil and the plants, gets absorbed, and gets re-radiated as long-wave heat. Glass passes the first kind and blocks the second, so the heat goes in easily and comes out slowly, and the air inside on a sunny 40-degree day can climb to 75 or 80. Everybody knows that part. Here's the part that actually gets you through the night. The air doesn't hold the heat, the dirt does. Soil under glass takes in warmth all day, and after the sun goes down, it gives it back slowly into the enclosed space. That's your night heat. That's the whole reason a frame keeps things alive at 2 in the morning.
Which is the same reason a stone wall on the south side of a house is still warm to the hand after dark, and the same reason your driveway melts snow for hours after the sun's gone. And it's why one rule about building this is absolute. It sits on the ground, direct contact with soil. Not on a bench, not on a deck, not on a pallet. Put it on a table and you've built a display case that will freeze solid because you've cut it off from its battery. This isn't a clever trick somebody thought up for a blog. It's the technology that fed a capital city. In the 1800s, the market gardeners on the edge of Paris, the maraîchers, named for the marais, the marshland they worked, ran an operation on glass and manure that historians of agriculture still hold up as one of the most productive growing systems ever built. Elliot Coleman, the American grower who spent years studying their manuals, puts the cultivated land of those growers at around 6% of everything inside the city limits of Paris. They grew under glass frames. They covered individual plants with cloches, bell-shaped glass jars about 18 inches across, hundreds of them in a field. And on sunny days, a gardener walked the rows and propped each one up with a small notched stick to let the heat out. And under some of those frames, they ran a hotbed, a pit of fresh horse manure, decomposing, throwing off real heat for weeks. Paris had no shortage of horse manure in 1850. It was the city's waste problem. They turned the waste problem into a furnace. That system put fresh salad on Paris tables in January, and cucumbers and melons in May and June. Some of those growers exported produce all the way to England. Now, why did it go away, and who profited? I'm not going to sell you a villain, because there isn't one. What killed it was the refrigerated rail car, and then the refrigerated truck. Once you could grow lettuce where it's warm and land it 2,000 miles away in edible condition for pennies, no one needed to fight a February in Paris with glass and horse manure. It was easier. It really was cheaper. That's not a scandal. That's a logistics victory. Here's the part that is worth your attention. The knowledge didn't die because it stopped working. It died because it stopped being sold. A notched stick has no SKU. A free window has no margin. An acre of glass frames run by a man who knows what he's doing generates no repeat revenue for anybody. So the answer got quiet, and the catalog page filled up with a $300 polycarbonate box that does the same job worse. Nobody buried this. It just went unmentioned for 100 years, which in the end works out about the same for you. If you've got a cold frame going, or you had one and quit on it, tell me in the comments which it was and why, especially the quitting. I have a strong guess about the reason, and I'd like to know if I'm right. I'll say what it is in about 4 minutes. Here's the whole list. 1 window, free, 4 boards, any rough lumber you have, 1x10s, 2x10s, old fence boards, pallet wood if it's the wide kind. If you buy them new, figure $20 to $40 for enough to build a frame that fits a standard sash. A handful of exterior screws, $3 or $4. 2 hinges, if you want it hinged, $5, or free off a barn door. You don't have to hinge it. A lid that just sits on top works fine and is easier to lift off entirely. A stick, cut with 3 notches at different depths, free. It's the most important part of the build, and it costs nothing. Total, $20 to $50 if you buy the lumber, and near zero if you don't. Against $150 to $400 for the catalog version. Optional, and I'll be honest that it's the best $35 in this whole video for some of you, a non-electric vent opener. It's a sealed cylinder of wax or gas that expands with heat and pushes the lid open on its own, then lets it back down as it cools. No wiring. I'll come back to why that matters. Build the box to the window, not the other way around. Lay the sash on the ground and measure the outside of it. That's your box's outside dimension.
Make the back wall taller than the front. Back around 12 to 15 inches, front around 8. That slope is not for looks. It sheds rain, and it puts the glass at an angle that catches low sun. Screw the 4 sides together. Rough is fine. This is not furniture. Set it on bare soil, on the flattest ground you have, with the low side facing south. South is not a preference. In fall and winter, the sun runs low across the southern sky, and a frame facing any other direction gives away most of the light it should be catching. If you can put the back of it against a south-facing wall or a board fence, do it. You get reflected heat and a windbreak for free. Push soil or straw against the outside of the walls all the way around to seal the bottom edge. Cold air comes in at the ground line, not through the glass. Set or hinge the window on top. Cut your notched stick. That's the build. An afternoon, and most of that is looking for the screws. Here's my guess about why you quit. From the comments question earlier, you cooked your plants. That's it. That's the answer almost every time. Not cold, heat. On a sunny day with the outside air at 40 degrees, a closed frame can run 75, 80 inside. Lettuce bolts above 75. Spinach stresses. Seedlings that are supposed to be hardening off get soft instead, and soft growth is what dies in the first real freeze. So, the rule, and it's simple. If the sun is out and it's above 40 degrees, prop the lid a few inches. Above 50, open it all the way. Above 60 consistently, take the lid off for the day. And close it in the late afternoon while there's still sun on it, so you trap the warm air before dark. Not at bedtime, late afternoon. The rest of the mistakes, fast. Sitting it on a deck or a bench. No soil, no battery, no night heat. Facing it east or west. West runs hot and late. East misses the strong afternoon sun. South. Building it too deep front to back so you can't reach the plants at the rear without climbing in on top of them. Sealing it airtight with caulk all around. You want it tight, not sealed. Some air exchange keeps mold off the leaves on humid days, making it so big and heavy you dread lifting the lid. You'll be lifting it twice a day for months. 3 honest limits. First, the daily chore is real. If you leave the house at 6 and get back at 7, you cannot vent a frame by hand, and you will lose a batch of plants inside of 2 weeks. That's not a character flaw. That's a schedule. That is exactly who the $35 automatic vent opener is for. And if that's your life, buy it before you build anything. Second, the old window itself. If the house it came out of was built before 1978, assume the paint on that sash contains lead until a test says different. A few dollars for a test kit at the hardware store. Do not sand it, do not scrape it, do not power wash it. If the paint is sound and stable, it's not doing anything sitting there. If it's flaking, either encapsulate it properly or use a different window. You're going to be growing food an inch under it and kneeling beside it all spring. And on the glass, it's single pane annealed, not tempered. It breaks into long shards, not pebbles. So keep the frame low and out of the traffic lane where children run. Never step or sit on the lid. And if you're nervous about it, run clear packing film across the underside so a break holds together. Third, what it will not grow. This is a cool season tool. Tomatoes, peppers, melons, cucumbers, they want heat, height, and pollinators, and a frame gives them none of the 3. Don't ask it to. Its job is greens, roots, and hardening off. And at that job, nothing else touches it for the money. Don't build anything yet. Here's the one thing. Get the window. That's a phone call or a drive-by. The crew doing the window job on the corner, the restore, or the pile behind your own garage. Then set 4 concrete blocks on bare ground in the sunniest spot you have, in a rectangle a little smaller than the sash. Blocks are about $2 a piece, or free if you've got some. Lay the window on the blocks. Push dirt or straw against the outside of the blocks to close the gap at the ground. Scatter spinach seed underneath it and water it in. Cut a stick with 3 notches and lean it against the frame where you'll see it. 20 minutes, somewhere between nothing and $12. And you will know inside of 3 weeks whether this is worth building the wooden box for, because you'll have spinach up in ground that was doing nothing. Build the real one after the thing has proved itself to you, not before. Next week, the other half of the Paris system, the hotbed. What actually goes in the pit under the frame, how deep, how fresh it has to be, and how a pile of manure held its heat through a French January with no fuel and no fire. That's the part that turns a cold frame into something closer to a greenhouse, and it costs about the same as this did. A man on my road paid a landfill by the pound to take away 11 windows. 9 of them are behind my shed. They came out of a wall where they'd been keeping weather off people for 50 years, and there is nothing wrong with them, and nothing was ever going to be wrong with them. Find one. Set it on 4 blocks. Put spinach under it. The frost is coming either way. The only question is whether it gets everything.